going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope you're all doing well. Let's talk about the MLB standings. There's so many moves with the trade deadline that recently happened earlier this week. I'll get to that very shortly. Let's talk about the standings. What we got. We're looking at the playoff picture now. I'll be doing that pretty much every single time we do this podcast when I talk baseball. We're at that point of the season. So in the American League, we got Orioles at 68-42. They lead the American League East. They're 2 games ahead of Tampa right now. They're the 1 seed in the American League. The 2 seeds, Texas, 64-46. They're a game and a half ahead of Houston. So obviously you got a couple of tight divisions. And the Minnesota Twins, only 57-54, only 3 games over 500, but the division's so bad. They're 2.5 games ahead of Cleveland right now. They're in first. For wild card stand, they raise. They're the first wild card. They have a 5.5 game lead for that first wild card spot. You got Houston. It's the second wild card. They are 2 games ahead of 2-game lead for that second wild card spot. Toronto is the last spot right now. Seattle's 2.5 out. Seattle, little mini sell at the deadline. I'll get to that shortly. But they've been playing really well. Had a really good month of July. They've continued for the most part into August. So they're only a couple days in. They're only 2.5 games out. Boston Red Sox only 3 games out. Yankees, who have been struggling for a while now, they're 3.5 games out. The Angels are 5 games out. On to the National League, Atlanta Braves, best team in baseball, 70-37. They continue to just roll through everybody. First team to 70 wins this year. There are 33 games over 500. The Dodgers right now lead the West. They're 63-45. They're 3 games ahead of San Francisco right now. And you got the Milwaukee Brewers at 59-52, lead Cincinnati by a half game in the National League Central. So really, you could argue 5 of the 6 divisions are up for grabs. Outside of the National League East, which the Braves lead, the second place team is Philadelphia right now by like 12.5 games. Every other division, I think, is only a 3-game difference between the top 2 teams. That's crazy. That's almost unheard of. I mean, every year there's usually at least 1 or 2 that come down to the wire. For example, last year the National League East came down to the wire. Came down to, of course, the very last series of the season. The Braves swept the Mets, put themselves in position, and they needed the 1 win against the Marlins to clinch. And I think there might have been 1 other one last year. Can't quite remember. The American League East, the Yankees started struggling. They made it interesting, but then middle of September they started playing a little bit better. They picked it up around to clinch by around middle of September-ish. Yeah, usually there's at least 1 or 2 that comes down to the wire. This year we could have 5 of the 6 divisions come down to the wire. That's crazy. Probably 5 of the 6 will probably come down to at least probably the last 2 weeks at the very least. Could have a couple come down to like the very, very end of the season. The wildcard picture of the National League. San Francisco Giants are actually the first wildcard in the National League right now. They've been playing very good baseball. They're 61-49. They have a 3-game lead for that first wildcard spot. The Philadelphia Phillies have a second wildcard spot. They're 59-51. They're a game ahead for that second wildcard spot. And then Cincinnati is the last spot in the National League. Of course, they're only a half game out of the division as well. Miami Marlins are a half game out of the wildcard, 58-53. They were, I believe, they went into the All-Star break as the first wild card actually, but they've been struggling since the since the All-Star break, and they fallen. They're half game out, still right there. Arizona Diamondbacks 57-54, been slumping a bit, but still only a game and a half out. Cubs have gotten hot. They won 8 straight games, 7 or 8 straight games heading into the trade deadline, which allowed them to not sell. So they kept Cody Bellinger and they kept Marcus Stroman. Bellinger, of course, having a resurgent year, was MVP in 2019. Then the last 3 years, just barely hit 200 with the Dodgers. They non-tendered him. Cubs gave him a shot, and he's hitting over 300 this year. And Stroman has had a great year for the Cubs this year. Their staff. Cody Bellinger's on 1 year deal. He'll be a free agent. Stroman can opt out of the last year of his deal, which he probably will. Is what I'm hearing. He probably should, based off he's due around $20 million, and he could probably get more in the open market based off the year and his track record. So now only 2.5 games out behind Milwaukee in National League Central, and are only 2 games out of the wild card. Yeah, San Diego at 4 games out. They're hanging in there at 2 games under 500, playing a little bit better. Of course, we're horrible for so long. Major disappointment. To me, the biggest disappointment in all baseball, and the Mets are probably number two. The Mets obviously suck. They sold off a deadline, 7.5 games out. But speaking of trades, now let's get to the trade deadline. So many moves were made. We had let's start off with some big ones. So the Texas Rangers were very busy. They make a big move to get Max Scherzer from the Mets. The Mets are going to pay all but $22.5 million of his contract, so the Mets will pay the other 35, 36, 37 million, something like that. I think they're paying him $14 million this year and then like 21 or 22 next year. So they're paying basically the rest of his entire salary the rest of this year and like half his salary next year. Let's get back. Luis Angel Acuna, who is a really good prospect. He's mainly a shortstop, also plays second base, which will probably end up playing for the Mets because the Mets obviously have Francisco Lindor and stretch a shortstop. Also plays center field, has had a really good year at double A, hitting over 300. His swing is actually, if you watch this, by the way, his older brother is Ronald Acuna, the superstar right fielder for the Atlanta Braves. Their swings are actually kind of similar, which is kind of funny. But I was happy with this. The Mets had two choices. They either say, all right, a team has to pay all of Scherzer's contract and they get nothing back. They get maybe a serviceable prospect in A-ball. The guy is going to be 40 years old next year. He's got an ERA of 4, and he makes $43 million next year. Like if someone has to pay him $43 million next year, no one's giving you anything of value. So they said, all right, they said the whole time we'll make you a deal. We'll pay the rest of the salary this year, which doesn't really matter. I mean, paying a guy $14 million to play for another team sucks, but it's 2 months. It is what it is, and then they'll pay half next year again. Paying a dude $20+ million to play for another team sucks. First of all, this is a situation they put themselves in when they gave a guy who always at the time was a great pitcher, $4 million through his age 40 season. But I like the prospect they got back in Luis Angel Acuna. I think he could be the Mets everyday second baseman by the middle of next year. I was very happy with that. And the Mets send Justin Verlander to the Houston Astros. So Verlander is back with the Houston Astros. The Mets get the Astros number 1 and 4 prospects in the Astros system, both outfielders. Drew Gilbert was their number 1 prospect, and Ryan Clifford was their number 4 prospect. Gilbert's probably about 2 years away. I think Clifford's about 2 or 3 years away. But I was happy with that. They're paying $35 million of his salary. If his mutual option in 2025 triggers, he's not reaching certain things for that to be triggered. They'll pay $17.5 million of that. So basically, they're paying they really give out the breakdown like they did for Scherzer. My guess it's pretty much the same thing. The rest of his salary this year, about half of it next year. And they get 2 very good outfield prospects back, which I was happy about. Verlander was pitching really well. I was kind of hoping they'll keep him for next year, but this is a really good offer. And also, Verlander, he's ERA probably mid to late June was 4.5. He was really struggling. His last 7 starts he had a 1.46 ERA, which lowered to about 3.15, whatever it is right now. Last year his ERA was what, like 1.7? I want to say he was not going to do that again. That's unheard of. But I was a guy like Verlander, you're paying him $400 million through next year. You're hoping for at least sub 3, and even with this hot stretch, he hasn't gotten to that. So he'll be 41 next year. Like the chance of him declining even more are very likely. So like Scherzer, I can kind of see how the Verlander they got a big return for Verlander because he hasn't been pitching well lately. But Scherzer, I was surprised because he really hasn't had a great year. Like he really hasn't. If he's in area 4 next year, then now this year, next year's probably gonna be even worse. I don't know if he'll be that good next year, to be honest. Verlander, Even Verlander, I think will decline a little bit more next year. I think with Verlander, he's clearly has shown that he's still a very good pitcher. Maybe not a great one, but a very good one. So I think next year he could be a good like second or third starter. He'll have a sub 4 ERA, maybe like a high 3.37, 3.8. But Scherzer, I could see having the area 4.5 next year. But they got a very good return for those two guys. So Max basically said, we screwed this up. Let's blow this thing up. What they did. Get to other moves they made in a minute, but let's talk about some other teams. The Toronto Blue Jays they picked up Jordan Hicks from the Cardinals. They give up two right-handed pitching prospects, Sam Roberts and Adam Kloffenstein. That's a nice pickup for the Toronto Blue Jays. Hicks has had a very good year through a slow start. Has pitched really well. Done a lot of closing for the Cardinals with their closer Ryan Helsley being on the IL for a lot of the season. He's a very good reliever. He was the guy who came up as a reliever, threw 100 miles an hour, was lights out. Then he had some injuries. He kind of fell off. A couple years ago, tried making him a starter. It didn't work, and they put him back in the bullpen. He, for years, was inconsistent, couldn't stay on the field. But this year, he was finally able to stay healthy, and he finally was able to put things together. He's now in Toronto. It's a very nice pickup for the Toronto Blue Jays to help their bullpen. Texas did not stop after getting Scherzer. They picked up Jordan Montgomery and Chris Stratton from the Cardinals in return. They give St. Louis got a pretty good return. They get an infield prospect in Thomas Segis, a right-handed pitcher in Tekoa Roby, and then John King is a def reliever, year over 5 this year. They sent to St. Louis. Montgomery's had a really good year. Right now, in the area 3.4 right now. His first start as a Texas Ranger pitched very well. Last night threw 6 very good innings. I think only let 2 runs. With the Yankees, he was up and down with the Yankees for many years, for not many, but a bunch of years, and then they traded him to St. Louis last year. And ever since came to St. Louis, he's been a much better pitcher than he was in the Bronx. And Chris Stratton, who's had a decent year, ERA, I think it's 4.1 right now. He gives Texas a little bit of a little small boost in their bullpen, but the main piece is obviously Montgomery. Texas now got a really good deep rotation, and they also fortified their bullpen. Of course, they picked up Roll Shevins a couple weeks prior, so Texas, they did a really good job. They saw, how good their lineup is. They got probably the best offense in the league. They're lead the league in runs per game, the league in hits per game. They're top 3 in on base and slugging. They're 6th in home runs, and their pitching staff, which is a little more mediocre, need a little bit of a boost. So they went and get Scherzer. Figured, all right, they have a really good prospect, but for now, Scherzer's still a pretty good pitcher, even at 39 years old. They're only paying for 22 million next year isn't bad. And then they pick up Jordan Montgomery. He's going to be a free agent at the season. He's a nice piece to add this year. And they add Chapman to the bullpen, who's had a bounce back year through a tough year with the Yankees last year, and then Chris Stratton, who was having a pretty good year as well. Tech also picked up Olsen Hedges. You think ever anything in that trade. He's an awful hitter, but great defender. They have 3 catchers, and Jonah Heim, who's had a great season. He's an all-star. He's driven 70 runs this year. Mitch Garver, who's been a pretty good hitter off the bench, and then Hedges, who can't hit, but is a great defender. That's what he's there for. Angels stay busy. Of course, they make the deal for Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez to boost their pitching staff. But now they make the move to boost their lineup. They pick up Randall Grichuk and CJ Cron from the Angels. In exchange, they send 2 pitching prospects to the Colorado Rockies. They send right-hander Jake Mann and left-hander Mason Albright. Grichuk's had a good year. His power's a little bit down. He in the past he's been at 30 home runs, but he's hitting around 300. He's had a good year. Cron hasn't had a great year, but been playing a little better. He's been playing well since he got there for the most part. So Angels trying to get to the postseason, not playing great right now. They're now 5 games out of the wild card. They're the 5th team out in the American League with 51 games to go. But I would have traded Ohtani, even though they're only they entered the wild card race, only 4 games out of the wild card. You could have gotten a lot back for him. I know it was a rental, but I still think somebody would have given you a couple of top prospects, maybe a really good young player or 2. Could have gotten a great return for him. And the art team has him for 2 or 3 months, and then he probably goes to the Dodgers or wherever he's going to go next year. apparently I've heard that he told the Angels he would rather stay than be traded at the deadline. And apparently he's comfortable with the Angels and could resign, but I don't believe it. I've seen some of his facial expressions are going viral. Look like he almost wants to cry. He's been the combination just the pain of playing for the Angels, having to carry them for him to win 75 games every year, if that. And maybe he's starting to realize, as much as he likes playing for the Angels, he knows, the Dodgers or somebody is going to offer him north of $500 million, and there's no way he can turn him back down. Which is why I think he's going with Dodgers, because he really wants to stay in LA. Okay, he gets to stay in LA and play, but except he gets to play for a team that's consistently willing to spend money on all parts of our team, is consistently good and have a chance to compete for a World Series, opposed to playing for the Angels, who, despite him having 40 homers and being a Cy Young candidate every year, they still manage to miss the playoffs every year. It means that the Dodgers, he can go out and do even half of that, and they can still be a World Series contender. So to me, for him, that could end up being a no-brainer. But we'll see what happens in the offseason. Back to the trade deadline. Yammer Candelar goes to the Cubs. They give Sin back to the Nationals, a left-handed pitcher, and DJ Hers and shortstop Kevin Made. Candelar was a top prospect. He was with the Cubs to start square. Then he got traded to Detroit. Didn't really work out. The series with the Nationals had a pretty good year, so they send them to the Chicago Cubs, who decide to buy after their hot streak leading into the trade deadline. Put them back in the race. The Seattle Mariners did a mini sell-off. They trade outfitter AJ Pollock and utility guy Mark Matthews to the San Francisco Giants. Giants took about much. They were just trying to get some depth in their lineup. And this is an interesting one. Seattle sent Paul Sewald to the Arizona Diamondbacks, their closer, who's been very good those last 2 years. Arizona gives up Josh Rojas, who's an infielder, can play the outfield, though. Outfielder Dominic Canzone and infield prospect Ryan Bliss. I think Arizona actually overpaid here. Arizona's pitching staff isn't that great. They needed more pitching. And Sewald will help them. He'll probably close games for them, but they gave up a lot. To me, I'm still not sure if this makes Arizona a playoff team. You have a young outfielder in Canzone who could have helped them in the future. Rojas is a young player I like. He's overall pretty good hitter, can play all over the field, and a pretty good prospect. That's a lot for Sewald, who's turned into a very good closer his last couple of years for Seattle. He's a good reliever, but it doesn't put Arizona over the hump or anything. Arizona wasn't a closer away from making the playoff. It wasn't like in 2016 the Cubs were a closer away from being, the World Series favorite. So they gave up, the top prospect in baseball and Gleyber Torres and more for 3 months of Aroldis Chapman. That was to break a 108-year World Series curse. That's different. This for Arizona might get them in, a wild card spot. I'm not even sure if it does. So Seattle to get a good return on. Arizona picks up Paul Sewald. Tampa Bay Rays make a big move. They get Aaron Savali from the Cleveland Guardians. In exchange, they give up their third best prospect that goes back to Cleveland. First baseman Kyle Manzardo. I think he's one of the might be a top 50 prospect in all of baseball. So interesting, Cleveland decides to sell after, even though they're only like a game and a half at the time. We're only a game and a half out of the American League Central. Still only 2.5 games out of that division. But because the division is so bad, maybe they at least hold and try to see if they can slip past Minnesota. But decided, I guess that's slow. He's had a great year since going off the IL. Stuff for the year, right? He goes to Tampa. Tampa picks up another really good starter, giving them a top 3 of Shane McClanahan, Alex Savali, and Tyler Glasnow, which is very, very good for all healthy. Milwaukee picks up Mark Conlon for the Mets. They sent their 30th best prospect, Justin Jarvis, to the Mets. As a Mets fan, didn't really mind this trade. I knew Conlon was getting traded. It's a no-brainer. Free agent after the season. Hasn't even had a great year. Hitting like 240 for 720 OPS, but he's versatile, can play all 3 outfield spots, first base and third base. He's got playoff experience. He's a good clubhouse guy. And when I'm hearing Jarvis, he throws very, very hard. He can reach 102 miles an hour, so you never know. So he goes to Milwaukee. Tommy Pham goes to Arizona. Mets sent to Arizona. If they get a great return from him, but he's gonna be a free agent. He's older, though he has had a good season. The Arizona also picked up Jace Peterson from Oakland, the utility guy. They give up not deal. They give up a couple, like a prospect or two. Miami sent the Marlins were very busy. They picked up Josh Bell from Cleveland. In exchange, they send Gene Segura and Khalil Watson, an infield prospect. Segura's a veteran infielder, hasn't had a great year. He's much older at the end of his career. Was going to be a free agent at the season. As soon as he got to Cleveland released him, so he's now a free agent. So Bell is now Miami. Miami trying to get some power in the lineup. Hasn't had a great year. It's still a pretty good player. And then you have they picked up Ryan Weathers from the San Diego Padres. And also, they didn't stop there. They picked up Jake Berger, who's a utility guy from the White Sox, who's still very young and a good player. But they do send left-handed pitching prospect Jake Ear, the fourth best prospect in their system, to the White Sox. Another move from Milwaukee Brewers. They picked up Andrew Chafin, a veteran reliever. They send Peter Strzelski, who's a young reliever who does have potential, but they got a good player in Chafin in that deal. Brad Hand goes to Atlanta. Colorado sent them there. They give up a right-handed pitching prospect, Alec Barger. So we have 4 to 5 star bullpen with the Brad Hand move. Hand's been around a long time. He came up as a starter with the Marlins, and then he didn't work out, and the Padres scooped him up, made him a reliever, and obviously he became a regular reliever. And Atlanta picked up Nicky Lopez from the Kansas City Royals. They sent Taylor Hearn, they got from Texas a couple weeks prior. He's basically a minor league relief pitcher. So they pick up Nicky Lopez to get some depth in the infield. He's not a great hitter, but he's a good infielder. Scott Barlow goes to San Diego. So Kansas City trades Barlow, their closer. Wasn't that a great year, but the last couple years was really good. Going back to Kansas City was San Diego's 10th best prospect, right-handed pitcher, Henry Williams. The Yankees made 2 small moves. They pick up Kenyon Middleton, a veteran reliever who has got a 3.96 ERA upon coming to the Yankees. From the White Sox, they give up their 29th best prospect, right-handed pitcher, Juan Corella. They pick up Spencer Howard from the Texas Rangers, a former top pitching prospect who's flopped for some depth. Didn't make a lot of sense. The Yankees either needed to be very busy, pick up a lot of different players, need probably another outfield bat, at least one big bat. They needed one more starter and at least one more reliever. And push for the playoffs, hope they get hot heading into the playoffs, or they need to do the Mets did. Or Mets like, all right, we've been playing better lately. We're 6 games out. Maybe it's possible maybe we go on a surprise run and sneak into the playoffs, but that's unlikely. The fear was like this team is old and not that good. Let's sell. Let's pay down Verlander and Scherzer for next year and get really good returns. Let's flip all of our free agents and restock the farm and look forward to next year. Which, by the way, the Mets can definitely be competitive next year. I know in the Epler's press conference, so they may not go after the big names, but I don't see why they can't sign a couple of starting pitchers. You sign, Blake Snell will be a free agent, Aaron Nola will be a free agent, and Nola hasn't even had a great year, so maybe they can get him at a cheaper price. There'd be a lot of good free agents. They can revamp their pitching set. They'll have a lot of young hitters next year. I know Brett Baty's struggling, but I think he'll be a lot better next year. We know what we have in Alvarez. Mark Vantos will be in the lineup next year. Ryan Mauricio will come up. They should be better. If Marte is healthy, again, injuries aren't an excuse. If you're having enough to be out there, you gotta go out there and play well. Marte's not been good this year, but could maybe he bounce back next year. There's no reason the Mets may not be a World Series contender. That's definitely a stretch, but be a playoff contender. Not sure why that's out of the question next year for the Mets. Yes, they made it harder by doing it, but there's no reason they can't build the playoff team next year. But the Yankees should have done that. Like, all right, we're 3.5 games out of the wild card. They haven't played well in 2 months. Like, all right, yes, they're still close. Maybe if Judge comes back, they just got Aaron Judge back a week ago. If he's the same player, maybe he's enough to push them into the postseason. But be realistic, you haven't played good baseball in 2 months. Even with Judge back, you don't have a good lineup. And now Anthony Rizzo, who's been horrible, he's out for concussion. That's a really, really weird thing with Rizzo. I want to talk about that for a minute. So Rizzo was placed on the IL. So he was feeling dizzy. Aaron Boone said he thinks it's like some sort of concussion-like injury. He says he thinks it happened when him and Tatis had a little mini collision at first base back in May 28th. He was, I think, Rizzo was kind of like, he was like a little bit crowded. He was trying to like catch the ball. I think he was trying to maybe double off Tatis or something. Maybe it was a pickoff. I forgot what the play was. And Tatis, as he's running back into first base, kind of like ran into his head, and Rizzo was shaking up a little bit, but he ended up being fine. He kind of shook it off and just went about the season. On May 28th, Rizzo was hitting 304, I think, of 11 home runs with like an 830 OPS. Since May 28th, Rizzo was hitting 172 with 1 home run and like a 460 OPS. It's been awful. And now we're hearing like he would like forget scores of games. Maybe he's been playing with a concussion for 2 months. I mean, Anthony Rizzo's a guy who's made the All-Star team 3 or 4 times. He's won a World Series. He's won a couple of Gold Gloves. He had 30 homer year last year. Was having a great year this year for the almost 2 months, first 2 months of the season. You don't just flip a switch and forget how to play baseball. Like it's not how things work. The Yankees should have like, all right, yes, for 3.5 out, but we're gonna have to bring in 2 or 3 hitters. We would have to bring in 2 or 3 stars, maybe a reliever or 2. They have struggled to hit all year. The rotation behind Gerrit Cole is not good. The bullpen's been struggling. We're giving up the season when we're 3.5 games out, but best case scenario is they sneak in get the last wild card spot, lose in the first round, and go into next year with way too many questions and not enough answers. Or they could have retooled. All right, missing the playoffs here as the New York Yankees with the second highest payroll in the league is embarrassing. But now, if you're able to restock the farm, you can call up some of these prospects. You can give Oswaldo Peraza consistent time, Oswaldo Cabrera consistent time. And there's some other guys maybe that could help you. Maybe Austin Wells could come up. Let some of these young guys play. And then you head into next year with less questions and some more answers. And potentially be in for a nice year next year. Yeah, I'm sorry, but Brian Cashman, not a good GM. Boone's not a good manager. This regime has got to go. We got the Philadelphia Phillies make a move. They pick up Michael Lorenzo from the Detroit Tigers. It's on their number 5 prospect, second baseman, how you lead Detroit. So I think it's a win-win trade. It's a good return for Detroit. Lorenzo picks up, and Lorenzo goes to Philly. It's nice. Starting pitcher has had a good year. For Philly to fortify the rotation. Pittsburgh made a small trade for Pittsburgh to pick up Billy Folder from the Pirates. They send backup Anthony Rodolfo Castro to the Phillies, so Phillies get some bench depth. Paul Leon goes to Toronto. It's a bit of a surprise move. Their all-star shortstop, Bichette, is injured. He got hurt recently. He's going to be out probably a couple of weeks, I think. So DeYoung, who since signing that 6-year extension, hasn't been great. He's been good defensively, but hasn't hit much. He's hit a little bit better this year. He only hit like 230. He's got 11 or 12 homers, hit a little bit better. He's still a pretty good defender. So he'll replace Bo Bichette until he gets back. They send right-handed pitching prospect Matt Swanson back to St. Louis. DeYoung's got 2 options left on his contract, so Toronto can kind of play around with that. San Diego made a couple of moves. First thing they did, they picked up Rich Hill and G-Man Truck from Pittsburgh. Troy's a first baseman. Hill, of course, a starting pitcher. They send first baseman Alfonso Rivas, and then 2 prospects. Left-handed pitcher Jackson Wolf and outfielder Estar Suero the other way. So I thought that was a pretty good by San Diego. Rich Hill, 43 years old, still kicking. That gives him some depth in the rotation. They pick up Choi, who's got power, really good first baseman defensively. And moving along, Jack Flaherty goes to the Orioles. They give up 2 prospects. His are Pritos, an infielder, and a left-handed pitcher, and Drew Rom. He hasn't had a great year, 4.58 ERA, but he's still a good innings eater. world end to their rotation, which is a knee. Mets actually made a small buying move, pick up Phil Bickford and Kolarek to boost their bullpens because they had no other pitchers. They traded all of them away. Trade your closer and Robinson, then you traded 2 stars in Scherzer and Verlander, and then Dave Pearson's going to come up into the rotation now. So you basically need 2 relievers and 2 stars. Because you trade 2 stars, and you trade 1 reliever in Robinson, but then Pearson, who is currently in the bullpen, is joining the rotation. So they decided to recall Tyler Miguel who's going to start, be their 5th starter, and then Bickford and Kolarek, along with all the other minor leaguers are now in the Mets bullpen. And also, they send Dominic Leone to the Angels, which I was surprised they got the Angels' 9th best prospect back, in for Jeremiah Jackson for Leone, who's got a 4.3 ERA, hasn't had a great year. And the Dodgers stayed busy. They picked up Ryan Yarbrough from the Royals, sent first baseman Devin Mann, shortstop Dylan Figueroa, 2 prospects the other way. Boston Red Sox picked up Luis Urias, which is an interesting move. I think they got a couple of years from the pitching prospect, and Bradley Blaylock the other way. Luis Patino goes to the White Sox in a small trade. His more top prospect hasn't really worked out. Rays sent him to the White Sox. And Justin Brule, a deck reliever, goes to the Rockies from the Dodgers, and Kansas City gets Tucker Davidson in a trade. Young starter who's not that good, well, whatever. And that's it for the trade deadline. Was very, very busy. One guy who I thought like him that didn't, Eduardo Rodriguez, a Tiger starter. He has 3 years left on his contract, but could opt out. Has had a very good season. The Tigers have a trade in place to send him to the Dodgers, but Rodriguez had no trade on Knicks for trade. He said he has nothing against the Dodgers. The reason he Knicks betrays is he's something about he wanted to prioritize being happy in his family. So maybe his family was happy in Detroit or something. I heard he wanted some sort of financial or contractual obligation. Maybe he wanted a contract extension or a raise or something. But a combination of maybe he wasn't totally set on maybe living in LA or leaving Detroit quite yet, and maybe something with his contract that he wanted some sort of contract update that the Dodgers wouldn't give him. Onto the NHL, we had a couple of contract extensions. Wild re-signed their goalie, Phil Augustin, a young goalie, who had a good year last year. 3-year deal worth $3.75 million a year. The Ducks extend Troy Terry, who's a really good young player, probably their top goal scorer. 7 years, $49 million. The Capitals extend Tom Wilson, 7 years, $45.5 million. Dirty player, but he is a pretty solid player, besides being dirty. The Penguins are looking at trade for Erik Karlsson, who's the reigning Norris Trophy winner. San Jose Sharks, he requested a trade. There's rumor that this weekend they could try to trade for him. So we shall see what happens. Only NBA news I got Montrezl Harrell, a Sixers big man. He tore his ACL and his meniscus, so we probably won't see him this year. The Knicks are planning to extend Josh Hart. He exercised his player option worth $12.9 million. I hear he's probably going to get a 4-year extension worth probably around $100 million. He's perfectly fit for the Knicks off the bench. He played really well for the Knicks. Knicks were one of the league's best team after acquiring him. So hopefully, as a Knicks fan, I really like Hart. He's perfect fit for their team. I would like to see them extend him. I'm going to try to lock down his moves, especially with the new salary cap rules. Lock down as many guys as he can as early as he can, because otherwise it's going to get really expensive and really hard to keep the team together. For example, the Denver Nuggets win a championship, and already they didn't have enough money to re-sign Bruce Brown or even Jeff Green. Not that makes them not good. They're still a great team, but still, the new luxury tax rules. It's gonna be tough. The Lakers extend Anthony Davis 3 years, $186 million. This one I don't understand. We all know what Anthony Davis is when he's healthy. When he's healthy, he's probably a top 5 player in the world. He's a beast. He's one of the most talented power forwards the league's ever seen. But the guy is always hurt. And I'm sorry, he's not the same player. One night, he goes out there and has 40 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 blocks, and he's amazing. The next night, he gives you 10 points. He's inconsistent. So when he's healthy, some nights he's amazing, but some nights he's inconsistent. He's also inconsistent. He'll have his off nights, and he's always hurt. And he gets $62 million a year, whatever it is. That doesn't make any sense to me. I would tell him, go out there this year, have a consistently healthy season, help the Lakers have a deep playoff run again, and then we'll talk about giving you a bag. I know we're trying to set up life after LeBron because LeBron's going to be what? He's going to be 39 years old. He can opt out after the season. Bronny's going to be drafted next year. He might go where Bronny goes. So he may only play for Lakers a year, maybe 2. So he leaves or retires. And trying to prepare for life after LeBron, which is why you re-sign Rui Hachimura for 4 years. You re-sign Austin Reeves for 4 years. They kept their first round pick and they drafted the kid at Indiana. They're trying to bring in younger players in free agency opposed to older players. But at the same time, you might be paying AD $60 million a year to be inconsistent and play 40 games a year. We'll see what happens. So I'm not sure if you guys heard, but the Pac-12 appears to be deteriorating. They've been losing teams left and right. Arizona State, and Utah will be leaving after the season and joining the Big 12. Oregon and Washington will also be leaving during the Big 10, which means the Pac-12 next year will only have 4 teams. Four. The Big 12 will have 16 teams, and the Big 10 will have 18 teams. Probably with a lot of teams have been leaving. Colorado is leaving after the season. They asked Deion about it. He was basically said we're just chasing the money. I don't care who we play. We're trying to win, chase the money. That's basically what he said. Typical Deion. That was very, very funny. He's not wrong. A lot of teams are leaving the Pac-12. And then you got Arizona State, and Utah were major forces in the Pac-12. It looked like they were leaving, but then it looked like they weren't going to leave. But then the Big 12 basically said, you guys can come here for a lot more money. And like, okay, fine. So these conferences are going to look a lot different. Of course, the Big 12 is going to lose Oklahoma and Texas. They're going to SEC next year, but they'll bring in even more teams. Great, we got some NFL news with training camp coming to an end. Preseason about to start. You had the Hall of Fame game 2 days ago. Browns and Jets. Zach Wilson versus Kellen Mond. Meanwhile, the entire world was still watching because everyone loves football. Eli Apple's from the 1 year with the Dolphins. Jalen Ramsey, their star corner. He's out until December with knee surgery. Apple, he's not that good, but they just need another body. With Ramsey out possibly first 3 months of the season. He had surgery to repair his meniscus. So the Bengals signed an XFL quarterback, Reed Sinnett. Probably for some extra depth because Burrow, he strained his calf in training camp. They said he'll be out several weeks. I think he'll play week 1. I'm pretty sure he will be. I hope I drafted him in Dynasty a couple of days ago, but I think he'll be fine. That's just extra depth. I was happy to see an XFL player get a second chance. Quan Alexander to the Saints on a 1 year deal. Veteran linebacker, not the Saints. The Steelers. Was on the Jets last year. He was pretty good. He's older, but he's still a good depth piece. He goes to Pittsburgh. The Bears signed Yannick Ngakoue at 1 year, $10.5 million. He's a good pass rusher, can give you 8 to 10 sacks a year. The Bears, and they also signed Marcedes Lewis to 1 year deal. Well, he hasn't been good in a while. He's a backup to them, but his 18th season, that's the most he's NFL tight end record. 18th season this year he's going to play. He was with the Jaguars for years. Then he was with the Packers for years. Now he's with the Bears. Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys extend veteran safety Malik Hooker 3 years, $24 million, $16.5 million guarantees. A pretty good player that they extend. Patriots give Matt Judon a $12 million raise. He can now make up the $18 million this year. He has really broken out the Patriots. Really good pass rusher. He's giving you 12 plus sacks every year the last couple of years. Alvin Kamara was suspended for 3 games. Yeah, I don't understand how the NFL does those suspensions. Deshaun Watson did what he did. He got 11 games. Zeke did what he did. He got 6 games. Alvin Kamara did what he did. He got 4 games. But Calvin Ridley places legal bets on the Atlanta Falcons, team that he was on at the time, to win while he was away from the team, battling mental health issues, and he gets a full year. Come on. Make it make sense. Speaking of the Saints, they extend Cam Jordan, their all-time leading sack artist, who's still much older now, but still a pretty good pass rusher. 2 years, $27.5 million. Yeah, the Vikings D-tackle James Lynch going into a contract year. Unfortunately, he's out for the year for torn ACL. I think there's been a lot of injuries in training camp. Yeah, every year there's at least a few. This year, there's a lot. And so you got to practice. You got to build up strength for the year. Yes, it's a short season for the other seasons. You have 17 regular season games, and then the 1 month postseason. But it's so physically taxing that you got to build up as much strength. So much strength. So you got to practice. That's why you have OTAs. I think it's the I don't even know what it stands for yet. The OTAs, you have mini camp, and then you have training camp, and then you have a couple of preseason games, and then you get to the season. So you gotta practice, and unfortunately, you can't you can take these a little bit in practice, but not can't do it the whole time. You gotta be somewhat game speed, so that's why injuries happen. Bengals extend linebacker Logan Wilson 4 years, $37.2 million. He's turned into a very good young linebacker. They lock him down. Jonathan Taylor requested a trade. The Colts running back from 2 years ago was an MVP candidate, had over 1,800 yards. Last year had a down year, only played 11 games. He was banged up. Only ran for like 850 yards, 4.5 yards a carry. He had a bit of a down year. Obviously, with all the stuff going on with the running backs, the Colts owner, Jim Irsay, he came out and basically kind of like defended the owners who are being criticized for not paying the running backs, saying the players agreed to CBA a couple of years ago. It's basically blaming the agents for not negotiating in good faith. And Jonathan Taylor, responded to him on social media saying, negotiating is in bad faith is not paying your star running back. Speaking of bad negotiating, why haven't you offered me a contract? Hershey basically said, didn't think anything of it. We haven't talked contract at all. Looking forward to him, him and the Colts season. Then Taylor requested a trade. Irsay said, not happening. He said, he texted, the text he sent to Albert Breer was something like, I'm not trading now, and I'm not trading him in October, which is, of course, when the trade deadline is. And he had that really weird quote saying, like, if he died, no one would miss him, and if Jonathan was out of the league, no one would remember him. Life moves on, the league's tough business. So he clearly is not trading him. Irsay is a very odd owner. I think half the time he's drunk when he says some of this stuff. This guy, he says the wackiest stuff. That dude. They were saying like he's going to be on the non-football injury list because he reported back pain in like an individual workout, and Taylor said didn't happen. So I don't know what's going on, but that relationship between the Colts and Jonathan Taylor is certainly on life support. Sonny Michel retired after 5 seasons. I'm a first round pick by the Patriots. I saw a funny graphic. It was so Sonny Michel and Stetson Bennett, former Georgia quarterback, is now with the Rams. They played on the same Georgia team in 2017. So Michel got drafted in the first round, played 5 years, won 2 Super Bowls, retired before Stetson Bennett was in the NFL. Because it's a whole joke. Stetson Bennett was in college for all that time. He's already 25 years old. It's pretty crazy. But he retires. Short career, but he got 2 rings out of it. Seahawks have the run master banged up. Kenneth Walker hurt his groin, and Zach Charbonnet is out indefinitely with a shoulder injury. They'll kick their ground there, so hopefully they're okay. Tim Patrick's out for the year for the Broncos receiver for torn Achilles. The tough break. He tore his ACL, missed all last year, and now he's not going to play this year. It's a tough break for him. That's the worst thing for an athlete. You miss the season with a major injury. You take work putting all the hard work to rehab and make your way back, and as soon as you get back, you have another serious injury before you can even get back. Speaking of that, I'm not sure if you guys saw like a week or two ago, Justin Wilson was a veteran left-handed reliever. He's been all over the league. He was really good with the Tigers for a while. Then he was with the Cubs for a bit. He actually spent the year with the Mets. He was pretty good. And for a short time, he was on the Reds, and maybe even he had a couple with the Yanks. He's been out for like a year and a half with Tommy John. He's warming up. He's now on the Brewers. He's warming up in the bullpen for like his first appearance in like a year or two. As he's warming up, he hurt his arm really bad where he was like holding on the ground. And I don't think we're going to have Tommy John again, but it's a serious injury. So rough. Ronald Jones got suspended for 2 games, PEDs, whatever. He's horrible anyway. So we got some cinema with the coaches. Sean Payton called out Nathaniel Hackett and the Jets. He basically said, last year, Nathaniel Hackett's job with the Broncos, one of the worst in NFL history. Blasted it, and then he basically took a shot at the Jets with not letting Hard Knocks see them cut players. And then Rodgers came out and said he needs to keep my coach's name out of my mouth. And then Hackett, of course, is now the offensive coordinator of the Jets, and he's been with Aaron Rodgers for a while because he was Aaron Rodgers' offensive coordinator for 2 years with the Green Bay Packers prior to taking the head coach job at Denver last year. Said that he broke the code between coaches. So Jets Broncos are playing in week 5. I'm hearing they might flex it to prime time because that's going to be an exciting game. Tampa Bucks first round pick D tackle Elijah Cansey is out for a month, but he could still play week 1. So the Bucks better hope he's okay. I think Jackson's be a great player. He came from Pitt. Y'all know, and their D tackle came out of Pitt, Aaron Donald. And Cansey was actually being compared to Donald at the draft, so we'll see. We got so Ioma was a rookie, the Broncos player, the Denver Broncos player who got suspended indefinitely, probably for at least for about a year for the year for being suspended. He probably won't ever play again because he's facing possibly 2 years in jail. He plays 32 bets on the Denver Broncos and on Iowa State, and he lied about the sports wagering records by concealing his identity. So he might be not only will he not play in the NFL again, he might be in jail for a year or 2. I'm sorry, you cannot bet on again, this is my thing. You guys should not be able to bet on the NFL. It's even if you're betting on your team to win, it's way too close to being shady and games being rigged and guys throwing games and kind of reeks of Tim Donaghy, the ex NBA referee, and the ex basketball player. They known as Headache, the whole documentary. If those of you who watched that will know what I'm talking about, and it reeks of that. But if a football player wants to bet on the NBA, I don't care. Holding like, he puts a bet on the NBA while up at the facility. That's so dumb. NFL partnered with all these sports books. Who cares? That's just hypocritical. If I'm a random player, if Baker Mayfield wants to bet the New York Yankees money line that the Yankees are going to win a game, I don't know sports fans. I just might sound really weird. He should. Who gives a crap? Knock yourself out. So at times the NFL can be a little hypocritical with the betting, considering all their sponsors are DraftKings, this sportsbook, that sportsbook, FanDuel. Come on. And the Saints running back, Benjamin is out for the year for torn ACL. So Saints running back are getting a little thing with Kamara suspended for the first 3 games. Okay, almost done here. We got the Wyndham Championships in progress. I'm not sure what time you guys watch this on YouTube, but right now, as I'm filming this, Russell Henley's at 15 under par, and he's the leader at the Wyndham Championships. We'll see how that turns out. And I want to recap Monday Night Raw from this Monday SmackDown. There wasn't anything that happened that really affected SummerSlam. That happens later today. In fact, it may be going on by the time you guys see this. Too much, so I'm going to do Monday Night Raw. The opening segment, you had Ricochet and Logan Paul setting up their match. Then you had Ludwig Kaiser against Matt Riddle, and Ludwig Kaiser won the match. Wait, Ludwig Kaiser, he's actually a pretty good wrestler. He actually was complimented by Gunther, like a little, like off camera thing, and Gunther said he wishes that Kaiser would get more screen time. You had Maxine Dupree versus Valhalla. Of course, those two are the one woman each in their respective factions, Alpha Academy and the Viking Raiders. Maxine Dupree won the match. Of course, a lot of distractions back, at ringside. You had Tommaso Ciampa versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Of course, they've been in a rivalry with Bronson Reed, of course, is involved. Nakamura won that match. And you had Gunther against Chad Gable. Of course, that match was okay. Not too much happened. You had Becky Lynch against Trish Stratus. Becky Lynch won, so they're going to end up fighting. And you have Seth Rollins and Sami Zayn in a tag team match against Dominic Mysterio and Damian Priest. Rollins and Zayn won. You had, then you had Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler hyping up their match. So SummerSlam should be very, very exciting. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. Until next time, so long. Have a great day.